My purpose is to impact.
Okay.
It's to impact lives. And I found the expression, I was lucky enough to find a business that generated money and helped me to do that. And this is what I would say to a lot of entrepreneurs out there, male and female, that we need to consciously not just build for ourselves, but build for others.
Yes.
And we need to pay it forward as we get opportunities and doors that have been opened to us. We also must do the same for others.
Tara Fela-Durotoye is a Nigerian lawyer and beauty entrepreneur. She founded House of Tara International, Nigeria's leading beauty and cosmetics company, and was named one of Forbes' 20 Young Power African Women. Set up in 1998, House of Tara is a pioneer in the beauty and makeup industry in Nigeria and Africa as a whole, and a trailblazer in the area of retail, distribution, channel management, and education.
So I lived with a stepmother, two stepmothers and my dad. So it was polygamous family, but my mom wasn't there even though she was alive.
Yes.
So I think that's what makes it unusual. But,
yes.
but I call it the United Colors of Benetton. It's a good way to look at it now as an adult and to see the pluses and to see the variety. My one stepmother was Togolese. The second one was from Edo State in Nigeria. She was an artist, loved beauty and fashion, loved gardening, loved children, was very committed to mentoring and helping younger women. And so there were many of the, she loved to cook, there were many of the things that I picked up from her. Whereas my mom, on the other hand, is very strong, enterprising, industrious, a nurturer of relationships. And so I think the accumulation of my biological mom, who I didn't grow up with, and then my stepmom who raised me, part of the things that I see in my own life today as an adult that makes me marvel. Yes, it wasn't great as a child because then you felt like you were unusual, right? Your mom wasn't there and you had two stepmothers, like there was no other child that had that sort of experience. But it was, now as an adult, I see all the varieties that I picked up. But it's not something I recommend for anyone. But sometimes you're lucky enough to be able to see the good in the not so great.
Situation.
Yeah.
Do you feel that being around so many women is what molded you to be quite a strong woman from the beginning? Or what was the contributing factor? Because you're very strong.
Yes, I think that in terms of as a growing up as a teenager, yes, I was surrounded, and I never thought about it, but I'm also very committed to my relationships with older women. So I'm very fascinated by the older women. I have a lot of them who are my friends, from those who are in their 60s and 50s. And I think learning from them helps me to be strong. I remember times where people have underestimated me because they felt like, oh, I couldn't do this or do that. And I would share that with another woman. And she's older and has had the same experience, and therefore she can easily say, oh, don't bother about that. That shouldn't bother you. X and X is what you should do. And I think that has helped me become more confident. So whereas maybe if I didn't have the sort of direction and mentorship and support from older women, I may have made some of the errors, simply because I was close enough to them to know the mistakes that they've made.
Yes.
I'm also close enough to be able to ask them for counsel. I think that's helped a lot. Of course, in terms of my genetics and all of that, my mom, my grandmother are all very strong women. The part of Nigeria that I'm from, we generally have strong women, so that's also part of it. But I think a part of it is also upbringing and exposure.
I know your upbringing was very key in the beginning of the empire of House of Tara. I think specifically you mentioned your stepmother influenced you to actually begin your makeup empire. How did that come about?
So my stepmom was very fashion forward. As I said, she studied fine arts in a time where people studied to be doctors and lawyers, and she just wanted to be a fine artist. And so being an artist exposed me to her exploring all the different arts, but also in terms of beauty. She liked to have her makeup done, her hair done. So it was all part of the dolling up I enjoyed watching and seeing, and the interest was there. But soon after, just before I went into university, I had a 1-year stint with a perfume store in Lagos, where cosmetics were being sold, and I had the chance to test my hand and also see how women reacted to makeup, and I think that's where the seed was sown. And I went into university becoming someone who could do makeup very well, and my friends wanted to do the same, and that's how the business was born out of a hobby.
Right.
And I know that before you went into makeup, you were actually a lawyer.
Yes. Law student.
A law student,
yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so the transition from a law student to beginning a makeup brand, that's an extreme transition, especially around the time where that industry hadn't even been established. It hardly existed, really.
Didn't.
What was the inspiration behind that transition?
I think being young forces you sometimes to be adventurous,
right,
and not to be afraid of the future. I had already started my business as an undergraduate university, which meant that people already knew what I was capable of doing.
Right.
I managed the money well enough to be able to open my first makeup studio just right after university. So I had enough money to be able to pay the rent in a highbrow part of Lagos. That also gave me confidence, but I think also because my mom, my dad, both were unconventional. My father studied history, my mom studied fine arts and loved the artist space. And so she saw the potential in what it was I was doing. So I had support from home. But I think also the Nigerian community was already getting interested and intrigued by this. I'm also I'm not risk adverse. At the time, I was ready to take the world. So it didn't bother me that someone would look at me and say, well, you just studied law, why don't you practice law? But I'd already decided to make a name for myself in that, because I'd done many of the celebrity brides and some of the elites in Nigeria, and that just positioned me and made it easier for me to transition.
Now, as a female who's young, you're age of 20, when you were looking at establishing House of Tara, what was the vision for the brand at such a young age?
You must understand that at the time when I started, there wasn't a vision per se.
Okay.
It was a hobby that I was enjoying and exploring. And then as I went along the way, I realized this was a business, right? And this had potential. But I didn't have this big dream of wanting to build this big empire. It took a while for me to realize this is a real thing, this is a real business, and has potential, and this is what it can become.
And how did you go about, putting in place the building blocks? Because you had the first ever makeup studio, the first ever makeup line, the first ever
makeup school.
Yes. And so when you're creating or paving a path that doesn't exist, what were the key building blocks that you used to be able to achieve that?
So as I said, there was a transition, but then I got to a place where I realized this was a real business.
Yes.
I created my vision statement. I created a vision. I visualized what else could I do with this. I wanted a combination of a product line that could help to empower young women like Mary Kay and help them become financially independent. I wanted a brand of makeup that was professional enough to compete with the MAC Cosmetics. I wanted to have a store that was the mecca of makeup, where you could have all the different cosmetics like your Sephora. I had this vision in my head, and in visualizing, right, it gives you confidence. It gives you drive, it gives you a desire, and that was one of the things that drove me. Secondly, I was very, very lucky as well to meet my husband at the time when I met him, and I got married at 24, so you could see that it was still that my business had started, right? He's 6 years older than me, but he was a management consultant, and one of the things that he did was to give counsel, because he was already exposed to companies and businesses, and he had seen businesses that were unusual, that had become great organizations. And so the counsel and the guidance that I got was a key pointer for me in developing House of Tara. So I would say the vision, yes, and then having a spouse who had that sort of experience and was able to handhold me through that process. I think thirdly was being conscious of building a brand, because I knew that building a brand will be, I needed to be able to create a story around what I was doing, get women in Nigeria to be attracted to it, be committed to it, and be committed to the brand. And I think that building a brand, having a vision, and having that support of a spouse was critical. It could have been my friend, it could have been my sister, it could have been my dad, but in this case it was my spouse.
And what were some of the challenges you actually faced in that journey?
Because it was an unusual industry, like it wasn't an industry that existed, so it meant that it was difficult to have access to finance. Today, the government and banks have, they have all these kinds of loans and grants that exist today, but at the time, these didn't exist. They didn't exist because it was not even an industry that was recognized. Like if you ask someone what industry it was, they would not be able to say. They would be like, painting of face, we don't really understand what that really means. And so the banks were not even interested. And I remember asking for a bank loan, and the question was on based on, well, when it's not oil and gas. But today they realize that beauty is really oil and gas today because all the women want to look beautiful. And that was one, but that's at the early stages. But I look at a more recent challenge that we've had. I mean, the business is over 20 years now, but in 3 years ago, I was in China, and a Chinese woman in the market came up to me and said, was I interested in buying Tara products? So interested if I was Nigerian, and I said, yes, I'm Nigerian, and she wanted to know if I would be interested in carrying Tara products. And I said, Tara products? She said, yes, and she saw the look in my face and realized I was hesitant, but she didn't know why I was hesitant, so she decided to go ahead and convince me about how great the product was by showing me where the product was being exported to, exported to, the countries that it was being exported to. At this stage, I'm looking at my brand, I'm looking at my name, I'm looking at my logo, and I know this is not my product.
Yes.
But this is a counterfeited version. Yes. And I was just totally devastated. I eventually left that market, went to my hotel room, and I was depressed. Like, I couldn't come out of my room for days. But you know how you build a brand and you think, I can't believe this is actually happening to me. You hear this happen to LV, you hear this happen to all these brands, but you never realize that this could be you. And soon after that, we began to see a loss in sales and revenue because these things were now being imported into the country through different means, and the product was being spread across the country. Just walking on the streets and you see a malam, you know, a hawker who's selling Tara products, and you know this is not your product. But guess what? People are buying it, and people are breaking out because of it. I mean, this was one of the worst times in my business life. But it was also great because I saw the support, and that's the power of having a strong brand. Is that the Nigerian women and community stood up, and people were going to stores where the products were being sold that were counterfeit, because we created a lot of social media awareness. We had quite a number of celebrities who stood up to say, you know, I was there when this business started. And I was part of it. Either I was a sales rep, my sister was a sales rep. They've empowered so many people, we can't allow this to happen. And just that whole power of a common voice was what shook the situation for us. So many of them went into hiding, and it was no longer something you could just see everywhere and anywhere. Phenomenal. So that's a good story so far.
House of Tara pioneered the bridal makeup profession in Nigeria in 1998 and launched the first bridal directory in Nigeria in 1999. She also facilitated the first ever series of bridal seminars in the year 2000. It's established the country's first makeup studio and makeup school in 2004 and launched the Tara product line, a brand that promotes ethics and ethnicity by empowering young women for economic independence without moral compromise.
I think what is actually quite remarkable is the 20-year run, because I noticed that when I moved to Lagos not long ago, it was interesting that House of Tara actually is the leading makeup brand in Nigeria, for Nigerians, for Africans globally. And what I found exemplary was in the digital age where there is a huge influx of phenomenal makeup artists, House of Tara stands head and shoulders above them all. How have you managed to survive the digital age and still lead in that industry on a global level now?
Two reasons. One of them is you know, influence, impact. Having prominence is one thing, but having impact is significant. And I think about lives. Anytime your brand touches lives, it can transcend any movement, whether it's a digital age, whether it's whatever the age is, as long as lives are being impacted. House of Tara single-handedly has built this entire industry. We're responsible for training some of the finest makeup artists in the country. If we didn't train you directly, somebody who trained under us trained you. If we didn't it was somebody who trained at House of Tara who trained somebody else who trained you. And so that connection is there. Many of the makeup artists started their careers using Tara products. And we're a brand who doesn't just train you, but over the course of your career, there's significant moments where House of Tara is a part of your growth. And for me, my mantra is I can't really build a business if I'm not building lives, and I'm not enjoying that process if lives are not being impacted. And I think to be able to do that, you then have natural cheerleaders, you have people who are supporting you simply because of the work that you're doing. So impact is everything for us.
Yes.
One of our core values at House of Tara is empowerment.
Yeah.
Another one is care. And so in everything that we do, we express kindness and care, but also we're very certain that by empowering other people, we ourselves as a brand is being empowered.
I think you're doing a phenomenal job at that. But I also want to kind of delve lightly into your personal life, because although you are a business icon for a lot of young women across the African continent and in the diaspora, a lot of women, especially myself, I was mentioning to you earlier, we are amazed at the beautiful relationship you have with your husband, your children, and the way you're actually able to publicly balance all facets exceptionally well. Grow your business, support your husband's endeavors, and inspire women to follow your path in multiple layers and levels. How are you able to do that besides being superwoman?
So I'm not a superwoman, but I'm very lucky to have a lot of support systems. So from the home front, I have domestic helps who have been with me for years. I have one who's been with me for 15 years. And my kids are now teenagers, so you can imagine if you have one person who's been with you consistently, you know the systems in the home.
Yes.
I have an extremely supportive husband, like I said earlier on, which makes it easy for me to dream and desire things that I want to do. But I think also my husband was raised by a single mom who's an extremely successful professor at the University of Ife, and so he's used to a woman who wants to do more, who wants to achieve more. And so that's what he's exposed to. I mean, his mother was a speaker in different countries, talking about geology and Nigeria. And so being married to someone who either desires to be a voice or desires to build successfully, that's what he's used to. So he will adjust and he will be the cheerleader as well, and be the first to say, House of Tara is too small, you need to be the world of Tara.
Yes.
These are some things he says, right? That's all the other thing. But it's also my faith, very grounded, and I think that your values shapes how you behave, and my values comes out of my faith. I realize that the institution of marriage is such a critical part of our society, and how our children are raised is based on that family setup. So my husband and I, from the day we got married, committed to an everlasting honeymoon, right? A home that is healthy for the children to be raised. But he wanted a place where I would be happy, and I also want a place where he's happy.
Yes.
And so there's a conscious, intentional, deliberate, consistent effort. Consistent effort to ensure that both of us are having a swell of a time in the marriage. And that commitment takes effort.
Yes.
It takes awareness and consciousness, and being in the marriage, not being absent in the marriage, but being there to know when changes need to be made as you go along on the journey.
And it's phenomenal to see. I mean, it's extremely inspiring. You were mentioning earlier about the counterfeit situation in Nigeria. Something that I also noticed that has affected small businesses extremely badly is the VAT. Now, how are you able to advise young SMEs that are trying to follow in your footsteps? How do they overcome these political issues?
Yes. It's such a shame that unfortunately this is the situation that we find ourselves. But Nigeria hasn't really changed. When I started my business, it was equally as tough. Then it wasn't VAT, but it was multiple taxations by state and federal. But the first thing is that it's a mindset thing, and that you realize that you're in a jungle, and that you need to drive your business with that mentality. No one is going to help you. You have to be committed to helping yourself. Yeah. That's one of the things in terms of mindset. But two, you have to think about, how do I need to create more streams of income within my business? So I started as a bridal makeup artist. I started to train, and from training, I created my own product line. I created a distribution model system. Today we have almost 40 stores across the country selling our products, right? And helping others also distribute their product. You have to think about, within your business, what else can I do? What other value can I give that will help me to generate more income and do more? So think about, scaling, right? Yes. And think about doing more. What else can I offer? And there's at least 7 other things that you can find, but that needs your concentration. That means you participating enough to be able to see the needs that customers have, and then to create products for that.
Right. And I'm going to go back to the heart of you, what would you say, someone who's so accomplished and all round really someone who adds value to every situation and environment you're in, what would you say is your purpose in life?
My purpose is to impact.
Okay.
It's to impact lives. And I found the expression, I was lucky enough to find a business that generated money and helped me to do that. I've also, in the last 5-6 years, I've also had the opportunity to mentor many of the young, successful women that we're seeing, uprising stars that we're seeing today, but also even through a platform called the TFD series, which has given me the opportunity yet again. It was set up by, I set it up for my mentor, who wanted to interact with women in the 25 and 35 age range, but that has grown beyond that. It's now become a bridge between the older generation and the younger generation. And we see yet again impact. So in everything that I do, if impact isn't included, then it's not fun. And so I would say my purpose is timed around impact.
And it's, your name is literally synonymous, aside from a huge makeup empire, with empowering women. Every time your name comes up, it's that lady empowers so many women. Talk to me about some of the work that you do that has been able to build such a huge legacy name for yourself as someone who is synonymous with empowering young females.
It's my mentorship model.
Right.
Because I have been mentored by women, like I said earlier on, a lot of old women that held my hand through different phases in my life, as a business owner, as a mother, as a wife. And I think that for anyone to be truly, truly successful, significance can only come when you're contributing. And the contributions that I've made consciously and unconsciously is in lives. And so I repeat again, that it's about impact, 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 impact. And as we grow as entrepreneurs, and this is what I would say to a lot of entrepreneurs out there, male and female, that we need to consciously not just build for ourselves, but build for others. And we need to pay it forward as we get opportunities and doors that are being opened to us. We also must do the same for others. We're in a world where we're in a continent that there's not enough development. And that development is also tied to not enough people holding other people's hands. And so we can't be successful alone. We mustn't be successful alone. We must think about our significance. And significance will only be tied to the impact and the lives that we're changing.
Phenomenal. I was going to ask you what would be your advice for young entrepreneurs looking to follow in your footsteps, but I feel like the message you just said is absolutely apt. What is the future for the House of Tara?
House of Tara will remain Africa's leading makeup beauty brand, and it will always transcend cosmetics. It would always be about lives, and that's what the future that I see for the company. I see it transgenerational. I see that I'm able to exit, right, and it's now run by somebody else. I see me moving on to doing something else, but then still sitting on the board of House of Tara. I see a company that will employ thousands of people and be listed on different stock exchanges around the world, but it will continue to be a truly African company.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been amazing just to learn from you, and I look forward to seeing the growth of the House of Tara, if it can grow any more than it has. I know that there's a course actually in Harvard right now that is actually built around your business. So I'm looking forward to the new chapter and more milestones.
Thank you. I look forward to it as well.
The list of achievements are endless. House of Tara still grows as the brand opened 2 branches in key export markets, expanded to the USA, and created a collaborative product. Making a difference to young lives is all part of Tara's mission, but what drives her is living her purpose and using her business as a vehicle to change lives.
For anyone to be truly, truly successful, significance can only come when you're contributing. And the contributions that I've made consciously and unconsciously is in lives.